Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Vakratunda Mahakaya Surya Koti Samaprabha Nirvignam Kuru Me Deva Sarvakaryeshu Sarvada Saraswati Namastubhyam Varade Kamarupini Vidyarambham Karishyami Siddhir Bhavatu Me Sada. Gurur Brahma Gurur Vishnu Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha Gurureva Param Brahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So, just to review from last time, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I surrender and bow down to that Guru who shows me that highest vision that we are all striving to achieve. So, Namaste, surrender, is such a precious and difficult task for us to do, because when we say Namaste, both our hands come together, is it not? So in this way, it is representing that all aspects of my attention, all aspects of my being, I am gathering together, concentrating, bringing it to this present moment, and surrendering it upon my Guru's feet. So that concentration itself is difficult for us to do, let alone taking that and giving it up to our Guru's feet. But when that sincerity of seeking that highest is there, when we genuinely want to grow, genuinely want to connect with what is being indicated, we should be ready to give up anything that comes in the way of reaching for that. So this surrender, though sounds simple, oftentimes in Bhakti Marga they say, you don't need jnana, you don't need the complexities of arguments and tarka and all of that. If your bhava is pure and sincere and your mind does not deviate from Bhagwan, you will achieve that. So yes, it is simpler, and because it only has one step, but that one step is so hard that it is equivalent to someone attaining realization in Jnana Marga as well. So Bhakti and Jnana are no different because of the state of mind that we encourage within ourselves to gather and give up. So in this way, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Now, what is the Guru indicating, and what is he instilling in us that evokes such reverence to that Guru? All of the verses that are being indicated give insight into that. And as we had seen, often we bow down to the Guru not because of the person, not because of the individual that they are, but what they represent and what they stand upon. So if we look at any of these verses, sometimes I might get confused. Am I talking about a Guru? Am I talking about Bhagwan? Or am I talking about Advaita Vedanta principles? In this case, it actually doesn't matter, because Advaita principles is Bhagwan, Bhagwan is Guru, and Guru is the principles of Shastras. So therefore, studying Guru Stotram is not just a stuti of Guru, but it is also a study of that which he stands upon, the Jnana itself. So we will be getting into some Vedanta philosophy, then dabbling into Bhakti, then understanding the application in terms of karma. So we flow between all three given the content that's given. So with that in mind, let's look at the very first verse. Let's just chant together the first verse of Guru Stotram, Akhanda Mandalakaram, and we'll stop after we finish that one. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Akhanda Mandalakaram Vyaptam Yena Characharam Tadpadam Darshitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So in order to understand this particular verse, Akhanda Mandala Karam Vyaptam Yena Chara Charam these two first lines indicate Bhagwan in its infinite nature. So before we get into the word meaning of this, I wanted to take a detour and understand Vishnu Sahasranama just for a second. The title is Vishnu Sahasranama. This is the stuti of Bhagwan Vishnu. But what is the first word that we chant when it comes to the main part of Vishnu Sahasranama? Vishwam. Vishwam Vishnur Vashatkaro. Usually when we introduce ourselves, do we not introduce ourselves with the very first name that we have, the prominent name? So how come it doesn't start with Vishnu? Why Vishwam? Vishwam here means that who is expressing in the form of this entire creation. This entire Jagat, this entire Vishwam is how he's expressing himself as. So, this is a very important strategy. When we say, I know God, I know what God is, we have to think, do we really know? When you say Bhagwan, what does the mind actually grasp when we say that word? Sometimes we look to the pictures that we've seen, the stories we've heard, but those are things that are just given to us. Do we truly know what the concept of Bhagwan really is? Does the mind really grasp it? What is Bhagwan? We would often have to say, we don't know. I'm not sure what the mind is able to grasp. So Swamiji used to have a really funny exercise he would make us go through. Damadaka Duchi. When I say that word, what comes to your mind? I would love your participation here. I said Damadaka Duchi. What came to your mind? Well, take a guess. A what? Saying something? Did I hear that correctly? Liveliness. Okay, that comes to mind. Any other guesses? Damadaka Duchi. Huh? A kid's game. Okay. Damru? Okay, fair enough. A what? Bollywood song, right? So in this way, a game, a sound, the mind is trying to grapple with this. And Swamiji, he used to be really good at this. He's like, what? You don't know what Damadaka Dushi is? How could you not know? But really, that word has no meaning. Swamiji had made up that word. So in the same way, when you hear a word and you don't know the meaning of it, look at how the mind tries to play around with that meaning, impose its own understanding. It can only grasp and grapple with it if it has a particular concept in mind. So when it comes to Bhagwan, Vishnu, what exactly does the mind have to associate a concept with that name? Often we don't. Therefore, when we start seeing the descriptions of Paramatma, Bhagwan, or even Brahman, the Shastras start telling us how can the mind grapple with the concept of Bhagwan. Therefore, in Vishnu Sahasranama, Vishwam is that first word that is used. That which we are seeking as Bhagwan is Pratyaksha, verily expressed in the form of things that are seen. Therefore, we say this entire Jagat is the form of Bhagwan. So whatever my eyes fall upon, that is Bhagwan. And so we say that this Jagat can only be beautiful because it is Bhagwan himself. It is Sundaram. And there are moments where when you truly find peacefulness, like you see the sunset, sunrise, the landscapes, doesn't this sense of joy come within saying, wow, this world really is beautiful, right? This is Bhagwan showing himself in his Vishwam form. This is how I can start to connect with the concept of Bhagwan. So Akhanda Mandala Karam, Akaram, so the form of the entire universe which is unbroken. Akhanda, Vyaptam Yena Chara Acharam. Vyaptam means he is pervading through Chara and Achara. Chara and Achara are classic phrases that are used in Shastras to indicate the completeness of everything to be accounted for, both that are sentient and insentient. Can you name anything that doesn't fall in either of these two categories? No. Therefore, chara and achara is a classic phrase used to say the entirety, the Vishwam. So this akhanda, unbrokenness, form is pervasive through all forms that you see as a pratyaksha. Now, there should be one important objection that comes to mind. If the world is so beautiful, then why the heck do we have awful people and worse circumstances and things called pain and suffering? How come? So in some way, we end up asking, if God created this world, then why are there so many atrocities? Why does Bhagwan give me problems? Why are there evil things in this world? So there was you know how Swamiji is, right? He'll really cut through some of your objections in a intelligent way. One time, somebody had asked him, in the previous yugas, especially when Ramji was there, this was Rama Rajya, Ayodhya, a yuddha, without any fighting. There was absolutely no problems in that, and it must have been such an amazing place. How come we now live in a time and place where all we know is atrocity? So Swamiji used to joke around, he's saying, let's look at this. Were you there in Ram Rajya? He's like, no. Are you here now in this Kali Yuga? He's like, yes. So he said, I wonder what the common factor is. In the presence of you, there is atrocity, and in the absence of you, there's no atrocity. Ouch. But in this way, we try to grapple with that question. When something is unbroken, when something is supposed to be pervaded by Bhagwan, why is it that we have things like bad will? And in fact, if we look at Abrahamic concepts, we start to get confused with this. In the Abrahamic religions, you have all that which is good is created by God. All that is bad is created by Shaitan, Satan, right? So we say, how come, do we have such a concept? If you say Bhagwan is all pervasive, then he also created bad things. How does this work? So we have to now come back to the example here. And please don't mind if I've used this example again. It's good to come back again and again in different concepts. Let me ask you, is a knife good or bad? If you've heard this before, you should know the right answer by now. Is a knife good or bad? Depends. The person. This one is the right answer. And Swamiji used to be very, very particular. Don't change the exam question. I asked, is the tool good or bad? You've added extra information by saying the person or the intention or the purpose of it. But the question was, the tool itself, is it good or bad? Neither. It's neither good, neither bad. So the vastu swarupa, the nature of that object, is neither good nor bad. Then where does this goodness, badness filter come in? This is when that vastu comes in contact with intention of the individual. So when the vastu comes in contact with kama of the karta, I've just replaced a couple words with Sanskritam here. The vastu comes in contact with kama of the karta. These are important because the vastu has no inherent quality of good or bad. The shade develops depending on who the ego is and based on the ego's desires and intentions that give it that implication. So let's take an example. There's a 2-year-old kid. I think they're called as a terrible twos because they've just learned how to walk and they're ready to run at life and go everywhere. So I think new parents, especially for the first child, they start stressing about child-proofing the house, right? So the outlets get plugs and all the corners get buffered and all of the sharp utensils get higher than the child. Let's say by accident you forgot to put away the knife and it fell and clattered to the floor and your 2-year-old comes running at it saying, "Mama, look what I have." What do? In that instant, you grab whoever's closer, either the child or the knife, and you want to separate the two. Why? Because that child doesn't know how to use it. And in its ignorance, it can end up hurting itself or harming others. So in this case, you quickly take it away, and what happens to the child? Why'd you take my knife? No, I want my knife back. They start crying and fussing and throwing a tantrum. At that point, you give in and saying, Beta, don't cry, I'll give you back the knife. You hold firm. You know the truth. If I give this knife back to you, it will cause harm. For your good, I am taking this away. Okay, so now, if somebody were to look at this incident, let's say your in-laws or your neighbors are watching this, and saying, what kind of cruel parent are you that intentionally makes your kid cry? If they accused you of this, what would you say? Excuse me, I know what's good for my child. That crying is not what I'm concerned about. For it's the good of the child in the long term, that's what's more important. Even if there's some short-term pain from that child's perspective, in the grand scheme of things, that's not what I'm going to be driven by. See, I'm pulling and opening up that simple example because this applies for our own self. How many times do we cave into our own likes and dislikes and follow and cry and laugh according to that, not taking into consideration what is actually good for us in the long term versus the short term? Where do these concepts come from? Shreyas versus preyas. Let's start with preyas. Preyas is that which seems pleasant now, but in the long term will lead to my destruction. Shreyas is the other way around. I might have to suffer a little bit now, but in the long term, it will be good for me. When we talk about dharma shastras, now I'm expanding it a little bit more. Dharma shastras takes into account the entire psyche of the human being and the psyche of the collective humankind over periods of time and determines what are all the guidelines that we should follow as a society together so that each individual grows and collectively this entire society is sustained. That means that there are going to be moments in the present that won't feel pleasant, but in the long term it will be good for us. So we just happened to have a conversation right outside before the session started about the dynamics in the home. Women are trying to, be both a career woman and work at home, and the husbands are also trying to balance, how do we manage all the responsibilities in the household when dynamics are shifting? One observation that we were thinking about was, we were commenting in the olden times, when the grandmother was the woman of the household, she was at home and she would take care of the house. Her main job was taking care of the house, keeping it clean, cooking, and making sure that at home, whoever is there is taken care of in whatever way is required. So there is a sense of stability when if the husband or the children were to go out to school or work and come back, there's some solid ground in the home. They can come back, rest, and be taken care of. But now there's this flip saying, no, even I have to go out and earn. And suddenly when everybody is going out, what happens to the stability at home? So then there's a tussle. Who should do what? Who should be in charge of what? Can we balance these things? So now there's this confusion that happens. What I've noticed lately in YouTube trends and what now, after all these women have gone out, now they're all suffering because they're not able to manage both. Do I manage career? Do I manage being there for my children? Do I manage being supportive for my husband? What about my husband supporting me? Suddenly there's all this confusion, and now we're seeing trends coming back to the old ways of things. I think the phrase now is called trad woman or trad wife. Traditional wife is the shortcut for it. And you're starting to see people saying, actually, there were certain values in the past. It wasn't oppression. It was a balance. So again, coming back to realigning with what is good for the long term, even if it means I have to sacrifice some things in the beginning. So in this way, when we assess this Vishwam, this entire world, and try to determine what is good or bad, it has nothing to do with the object itself. Family by itself is neither good nor bad. My spouse or my family members, all of them are neither good nor bad. Where does it come from? It originates from the vision I have and the filters I have within my own ego, the filters that come from my own vasanas. Whether I fall to it or find guidance from scriptures, they will then determine what is good or bad. But again, akhanda mandalakaram vyaptam yena characharam. From the highest standpoint, the purpose of spirituality is not to go from bad to good and stop there. The purpose is to graduate even further to find the divine and drop both good and bad. So this is not renouncing my responsibility. This is not renouncing the assessment of the world. It's to remember that there is something higher. And in order for me to reach there, that will help me guide and filter through what I need to. This entire world is perfect even now. Even in Kali Yuga, even in all the problems that we're seeing, everything is perfect. Bhagavan has designed it to be that way. Having this acceptance in our mind, then I'm ready to stand up and saying, okay, what is it that I need to do? So here, when we say, where is Paramatma? The scriptures shout back and saying, where is Paramatma not? You point to me where Paramatma is not. So goodness is created by our own perception, not by Bhagavan. Bhagavan is the one that supports all perspectives that are there. He is that Akhanda Mandala, the creation which is unbroken and divine. So now before we continue, there's a bit of a Vedantic concept we have to get into to understand exactly what is meant by pervasiveness. When this comes from Gita, chapter 18, around verse number 22. He says that ikshate avibhakti in vibhakteshu. Ikshate, to see, have that darshan, to have the vision that the undivided is in all the divided. So this Akhanda Mandalakaram has the same meaning behind it. Why is this important? It is important to recognize that undivided, because then it sets into perspective all of the interactions we have with the divided. So let's first get into the abstract philosophy behind this, and then we'll come into application. So the analogies that are used to explain this is like seeing electricity expressing itself through all the different appliances, or clay that pervades all the different forms in that pottery shop, right? So let's take the clay. The very essence of each of those items is clay. The only reason why we count them as different items is because the name and forms are different. If it looks like it has 4 legs and a trunk and 2 big ears, we call it as elephant. If it has a hollow shape with a handle to hold it, we call it as a cup. So the Nama Rupa is superimposed on clay. But name and form itself does not have any independent existence on its own. So for example, in that elephant clay, can I remove just the form of ears and the tail and the body and the legs and remove the, I flipped it around. Can I remove clay from the elephant and have the elephant remain? Can I take the clay out of the leg and will the leg stay? If I take the clay out of the trunk, will the trunk stay? No. So that is only possible because clay is the real thing that exists. Nama and Rupa are just superimposed. They're not actually independently real. So in the same way, this entire Jagat, there's you, there's me, there's Chara, Achara, plants, animals, all the different variations we see are just names and form superimposed upon one existence principle. I cannot remove existence and still have that particular name and form remain. Having this kind of highest vision is to be sattvic. This is defined in chapter 18. The more and more I'm able to maintain this, the more and more I become stable in my interactions in the world outside. Okay, things will come and go. So what? I am not going to go anywhere. I'm not going to get destroyed. It is this ego that is battling with the changes of the world. I am not my ego. I am that existence principle. Whether I get praise or not, whether I get my emotions rise and fall, I am not any of these things. I am that existence. Everything else can come and go. I am not it. So this should echo what we had seen in Sadhana Panchakam about how we disidentify with all the things we are not. So this is the next vein when we start looking at the word vyaptam, that pervasiveness. This is a standpoint we're taking. Now let's continue with it in a more practical application. When we say, who is that is pervading all of this names and forms? What exactly is its nature? What is that continuous nature that is there? We give it 3 words. Sat, Chit, and Ananda. 3 things. They're not actually 3 separate things. They're just synonyms to each other, but it's form of analysis. When it comes to Sat particularly, Sat and Chit, I know I am already that. There's no doubts about it. Why? We can ask some simple questions. Do I know that I exist? Do I know that I exist? Yeah. Do I exist? Yes. Do I know that I exist? Definitely. So sometimes we joke around saying, do you need like proof in every day in the morning saying, I need to check my ID, then I know I'm me? No. Or do you end up asking your neighbors, hey, do I exist? If anybody asked you that, you'd be like, are you okay up there? So we don't need any external proof or authenticity to know that I exist. Now, Swamiji had a really funny situation that he observed, saying how this contradicts this existence and knowing I exist. Apparently in India, there's this organization that was developed called Akhila Bharat Mritika Sangha. Means All India Association of the Dead. What? This association is a collective that recognizes all those individuals who by the government status is declared as dead, but they're not dead. So they no longer are an entity within the government system. This causes a lot of problems for them because when they go to the office to get their pensions, they look up their records and they're declared as deceased. You're like, dude, I'm right here. How can you declare me as this? And so they get into a lot of legal issues. So this Sangha was created to help those that are in this weird predicament. And this was Swamiji's punchline. He said, it's ironic that the organization has recognition of existence, but the people that they're representing aren't recognized as existing. So in this way, this weird conundrum of knowing I exist and I know I exist. So in this way, Sat and Chit, we can confidently say, I understand. Existence and knowing I exist, that consciousness is there. But where does the problem come up? The last one. Ananda. When we say, Shastra says, you are Ananda. You look around, like, me? Ananda? When? Guruji used to joke around. He said, our true existence right now is Ananda. I'm always miserable. Sometimes during our experiences in life, we start asking, Kadananda, when will I be happy? Then a little bit further in life, we start experiencing joys here and there, and so we are Yada Kadananda. Sometimes I'm happy. But really, our true pursuit behind any action we have is Sadananda. I want to remain that ever principle of happiness. That is what I'm missing. Because I exist, and I know I exist, but how do I exist? It should be Ananda. If you were to ask a 3-year-old, 4-year-old saying, choose one, do you want misery or happiness? There's no doubt. Who ever asks to be miserable? Everybody wants to be happy. That has been the pursuit of every endeavor we have. And behind every chaos, every interaction, every challenge we've gone through, behind all of it is because I'm seeking and searching for that happiness, ananda. So, when it comes to this pursuit, we have to start realigning with it, and we'll come to that in just a second. But if we look at this first verse, akhanda mandalakaram vyaptam yena characharam tad padam darshitam yena tasmai shri gurave namaha. Tad padam, that state, that status of being sat chit ananda, that is in and through every variation that I see, variations of chara and achara, variations of ups and downs, variations of plurality, names and form, all of it is nothing but that akhanda mandala, that unbroken existence, consciousness, bliss. That is who I am. Tad padam darshitam yena, darsha, to see. The one who shows me this is that very Guru. No one else is able to point out this highest truth other than a Guru. And because he asks the student, the Shishya, to open their eyes and see this truth, because he's the one that points it out, I am ever reverential and grateful that he's able to put such effort in trying to get me to open my eyes and see this. Tad padam darshitam yena tasmai shri gurave namaha. Now, to continue this vein, there's a bit of a pretext or a premise we need to understand before we get into the next verse. Yes? Akhanda and Sachidananda, where's the connection? Yeah. So when we look at the definition of Sat Chit Ananda, that existence principle is in literally everything. So we have to go back to one of the exercises we did in Sadhana Panchakam. Bear with me a little bit, we go through this exercise again. But let's say you have 3 different items. The clay elephant, clay cup, clay spoon or something. What is it all made of? What is its substance? Clay, right? So that which it's pervaded by is that. It is pervaded by clay, unquestionably. Therefore, it is clay. It can't be anything other than that. Okay, so that's one example. Then we looked at a steel bowl versus a clay elephant, right? What is the steel bowl pervaded by? Steel, right? Whereas the clay elephant is pervaded by clay. Now you say, well, they're 2 different pervasiveness. Okay, now I have to find what is that which is common in both the clay and the steel. So what was the thing that we said was common in both of these? We made a more general assessment. What is common in both clay and steel? Any guesses? We made it bigger by saying it's made of matter, right? Therefore, that's common between the 2. So clay is made of matter, steel is made of matter. In fact, you take any material and you say it is material because it has matter. Then we take one step further. Is there something that doesn't have matter in it? Yes, there was an example we brought, which was vacuum, space. That doesn't have matter, whereas material world has matter. Okay, now I find something that is common in both of them. What would that be? Existence. Both matter and non-matter exist. Space exists. Matter exists. So what is this, the point of this exercise? What are we doing? We're trying to find the one thing that is in literally everything. So you keep taking variations and finding the commonality in it. You're trying to find the common denominator that is in and through everything. So we always come back to boiling it down to existence is the one and only thing that is in all things. Therefore, that's the connection between Sat Chit Ananda are very much the descriptions of what exactly is the nature of that thing that pervades all. So existence, because it is common to everything, must only be one. If it's one, then it cannot be divided. Existence is unbroken. So Sat is Akhanda. Consciousness is Akhanda. And Ananda also is Akhanda. Did I help make that connection now? So that is why when we see various descriptions, they're not different properties. They're all indicating the same thing. It can only be Akhanda if it is existence. It can only be Akhanda if it's aware of its own existence. And it can be Akhanda only if it is in the nature of Ananda. So that analysis of Ananda will come next. So I hope I was able to answer that question. Okay? So with this, before we enter verse number 2, we'll have to look at a simple exercise here. If there's a stain on a cloth, how do you get it out? If there's a stain on a cloth, how do you get it out? Stain remover, right? But it also depends on what that stain particularly is. So, anyone know how to get oil out of clothes? If you're doing puja and suddenly you spill oil on your clothes, how do you get it out? Dough? Yes. Okay, I was glad somebody knew. This I didn't know until Swamiji also told me that any powder that is absorbent is a great stain remover for oil because it absorbs the oil out of it and then you can scrub it with soap and water and it'll remove it all. Funny story, one time, Hariji and I were messing around in the kitchen and we spilt peanut oil all over the kitchen floor and we both started panicking. And then finally we learned that you can't use paper towel. That will take forever. So we sprinkled dough all over it and suddenly within 2 minutes we were able to pick up all of that oil. So we've had some good experience with that. All right, then how about coffee? If you happen to spill coffee on your clothes, how do you get that one out? Amma, are you the expert of cleaning? Any hint? Anyone tried? Baking soda? Maybe. Swamiji would say no. Here it says that cold water. If you're able to wash it with cold water before it dries, you're able to pull out the coffee. And I had to sit with this for a second. Think about hot, in percolators and decoction coffee, you allow hot water to go through the coffee and that's how you extract coffee out of the coffee beans. So I'm like, oh, this makes sense. Cold water does the reverse. So this was one of the tips. Cold water, as soon as you can with soap and water, will remove it. All right, last one. I promise, last one. Morbid one, but if you got a blood stain, let's say you pricked your finger and you got blood on your clothes, how do you get it out? Water? No, definitely not. You need something a little bit stronger. Bleach? No. That comes from like TV shows if you watch it. But especially if it's a small one, they say your saliva will do the trick. Why? Because you have enzymes in your own saliva that actually break down proteins. And the other one I'd seen was commercial grade hydrogen peroxide. The 3% hydrogen peroxide is not strong enough. Dry cleaners have something around like 50% or 80%. That will get blood stains out of it. Why? What is the point of all this conversation? Each stain has a particular agent that works at the very nature of what that particular stain is like, right? So you can't always use the same stain remover for each different type of stain. There has to be a particular solution. So in the same way, when it comes to darkness, what is the stain remover for darkness? Is it hydrogen peroxide? Atta, you throw atta at darkness? No. Light. No questions about it. Light itself is the only solution for darkness. Now, another one, if you have like an old cave and it's been in darkness for 20,000 years, how long do you need to light that light to get rid of that old darkness? That also doesn't make any sense, right? The moment you light a light, it doesn't matter how old that darkness was, it'll automatically remove it. So, in this way, When we look at the darkness, light is the only solution for it. Light and darkness is always representative of ignorance and knowledge. Ignorance is like that darkness, and the only solution to that ignorance is knowledge alone. So let's look at verse number 2. Sorry, sometimes I forget the order of Guru Stotram, so I have to double check myself. So for the second verse, let's chant it together. 1, 2, 3. Ajnana-timirandhasya jnana-anjana-shalakaya chakshurunmilitam yena tasmai Shri Gurave namaha. Tasmai Shri Gurave namaha. Ajnana timira andhasya jnana shalakaya. So here they're taking that analogy. Salutation to the Guru who removes the darkness of ignorance with the ointment of knowledge. So this one I didn't know some of this Ayurvedic concept in here. The Ajnana Timira. Timira is the disease of the eye, or this causes darkness. The solution for it is Anjana, the kajal that we normally wear. There's an Ayurvedic procedure, apparently, I didn't know about this, that it removes certain darkness of the eyes when applying that Anjana. So in this way, that analogy is being used because this knowledge of who I am in my true nature, my nature of Sat Chit Ananda, which is all pervasive, Vyaptam, and which is unbroken, Akhanda, that is who I am. That's the knowledge I needed to get me out of suffering through the ignorance of otherwise. Meaning, I'm considering myself to be other than that state, and therefore I'm suffering through that, suffering in the darkness. So when we say that, what is it that I am suffering through? When I consider myself other than this highest padam, that state, what is it that I'm going through? I am identified as the body, mind, and intellect. Sorry, let me back up 1 second because I need to make that connection here. Puja Gurudev takes 2 words that describe the progression of knowing who I am to being this ego. So there's a dichotomy here. What is a process that has happened to get to where we are now? So the first step, I am the self. That is the truth. But I don't know that I'm the self. This is the first thing. This is the root cause of ignorance. I don't know I am that self. This is called as non-apprehension or avarana. It is covering up the truth. First, I have to be ignorant of it. Then after not knowing who I am, I'm still searching, I'm guessing, I'm trying to figure out who I am. And I start making mistakes. I start thinking that I am this body, mind, and intellect. I start thinking I am this individual. I start thinking I am this ego. So there's a misapprehension. I don't know I was a self, and I wrongly guess that I am this ego. Now, from this ego, I am now living in this body, using this mind and using this intellect. And therefore the next layer is, I am the body, I am the mind, and I am the intellect. This is the next layer of mistakes we make. And because I think I'm the body, I start suffering all the ailments of the body. Because I think I am the mind, I am now subject to all the emotions that come and go through it. And because I think I'm the intellect, I start running after ideas I have. So again, this process is, I am the self, but I don't know it. Misapprehension, avarana. Then after not knowing this, I start making guesses as to who I am. This is a misapprehension or vikshepa. Then from there, I think I am the jiva. And the jiva, when it's identified with each of the 3 layers, I am called as the perceiver with the body, the feeler with the mind, and I think myself as the thinker with the intellect. What did I just run through? The BMI chart. Body perceives objects. The mind feels thoughts, and the intellect thinks, sorry, I mixed that up. Mind feels emotions, and intellect thinks thoughts. So the equipment is BMI, but because I'm identified with it, I call myself as perceiver, feeler, and thinker. And being this, where do I run now? Outward into the world that is made of objects, emotions, and thoughts. This gets me into trouble. Because let's go each layer at a time. When it comes to the body, we think, I am tall, I am short, I am fat, I am skinny, I am brown, I am white, right? All of these identifications come through. Then I start fussing. Every New Year's, when it comes around, I make the New Year's resolution. What is the most common resolution on that list? I'm going to lose weight today. I'm going to lose weight. And then we start crying over it. And all this program comes about saying, if you don't want to wear it, don't eat it. This is a funny quote I've seen about weight loss. If you don't want to wear it, don't eat it. And so we start fussing over it. But when we start to detach from it, that identification becomes amusing. And this, Swamiji shared a quick story to understand how it's amusing that we're so identified with the body. He said that once he was having Bhiksha or staying over at someone's place, and they were an elderly couple, about 80, 85. And at that point, they didn't have teeth anymore, so they had dentures. So they had the most funniest conversation right before they're going to sleep. The husband calls out to the wife saying, "Wife, can you please go wash my teeth and bring it?" And she said, no, that was my turn yesterday. Tonight it's your turn to wash our teeth. Do mine too. Meaning, when we separate ourselves and we treat the body like an object, it's quite amusing. But instead, we become very identified with it. I am this body. How dare you call me ugly? How dare you call me fat? That immediate, even in that language, how dare you call me such and such? So that's the identification with the body. And when do we get threatened the most? When we, Kshudvyadi from Sadhana Panchakam. Hunger and disease. As soon as they hit the body, we start suffering. Body is suffering, and because I'm identified with it, I start suffering. And someone had a really interesting quote that I had recently seen on YouTube. He says, when you're healthy, you have 100 different problems. As soon as you're sick, you only have one problem. Goes to show how much we focus on our body when we become sick. That's really when our identification gets put in a spotlight. So in this way, we struggle when we are trying to maintain our body because we're so identified with it. Then let's look at the next layer of mind. Mind that involves emotions, how much it causes us problems when we're identified with it. These emotions come and go, and we allow ourselves to be carried away by them. When you're driving in a car, you have to control the car, not the car controlling you. So if I were to treat my emotions like a car, I need to control my emotions, not emotions controlling me. But is that the case? Definitely not. I myself also catch myself being so swept by the storms of emotions. One simple way of knowing this is when I intentionally go to movies, carrying with me tissues. Why? Because I know I'm going to cry. This goes to show how much that even a movie can induce emotions, and I know ahead of time I'm going to start crying because I'm so identified with it. Then, in more serious conversations, when difficulty happens in life, it feels like these emotions are tsunamis. It feels like I can't do anything but feel that particular emotion. When I'm sad, I am ready to destroy the rituals of my life and just do nothing. I don't care about how much destruction it causes. I am sad, therefore I won't do anything. When I'm angry, man, I warn people ahead of time. Hey, I'm getting angry now. Don't get in my way. You're only going to get hurt if you stand in my way. That sentence right there shows not only can I recognize anger, I have recognized that anger is in control and not me. So we have the ability to recognize it. Why don't we have the ability to do something about it? It's because I've become identified with it. So if we look at any, nowadays, a lot of the therapy sessions with those that are in this profession of dealing with emotions, you will start to see a lot of techniques about separating ourselves from emotions. Watch the anger, but don't be consumed by anger. Watch what triggers your sadness and learn to not, what do they call it? Counteract it or contradict it. Present thoughts in your mind that go against the wave of emotions that are happening and start learning how to not succumb to it. All of those techniques are right here. Because the fundamental problem is we have become identified as the emotion. I am angry. I am sad. When in fact, I should say, my mind has become angry. My mind has become sad. I can control it. So again, the solution is separating from what I think I am. Finally, from the intellectual layer, we get consumed with ideas. We get consumed with planning. We get consumed and identified with what we propose to the world outside. The classic example to see identification with thought is when you're in the middle of a project planning. You get a committee that comes together and you're trying to accomplish something. Somebody throws up an idea, somebody else throws up another idea, and you start voting and haggling and arguing over what's the best plan of action to go forward. The moment you can recognize a problem with identification with the intellect is when you start feeling hurt when the idea gets rejected. I propose this idea, I am brilliant, I am smart, identification right there. And when the group says, nah, that's a bad idea, let's not do it, and they move on. What, I'm not smart anymore. I didn't propose a good idea. What, they think I'm useless. Suddenly that internalization of being identified with a thought is showcased right there. So whenever we hear in our shastras, do not succumb to or be equipoise in both praise and criticism, it's talking about this. Just because someone criticizes an idea doesn't mean that I am less or more. I am that Satchit Ananda. I am that which gives existence to all of these things. Swamiji had a really, really good phrase here. Where, no matter how overwhelming any of these thoughts, either from the body, the mind, or the intellect, no matter how overwhelming it is only valid because I am that consciousness that allows it to exist. Man, I had to re-listen to that sentence again and again. No matter how overwhelming that thought is, it is only valid because I am the consciousness that allows that thought to exist. This is how understanding that Tat Pada makes such a big difference in how we live our life. I am that Sat. I am that consciousness. I am Ananda, no doubts about it. When I am all of these three things, then what is this BMI to me? It's nothing. So in this way, constantly fixing and changing our vision to understand what my true nature is makes all the difference in how I live my life. Puja Gurudev, and this will be the last point, Puja Gurudev in his commentary in chapter 2, I believe, he mentions that any problem we have in life can be resolved when we graduate from the lower level to a higher level. So he takes an example of seeing the spouse, right? This was the example that he took. And these are the layers we're going to graduate through. The body, then to the mind, from mind to the intellect, from the intellect to Paramatma, because Paramatma is beyond all these three. So let's take the object of a woman in our life. If I were to see her from the body standpoint, I consider her as a female. And therefore, things like desire, lust, or she's just a woman versus a man, those are things that happen when we're identifying from a body level. But if I were to, and let's say I have issues with that, how do I grow up? I then see the same object, female, from an emotional standpoint. I love her, or she is my wife, or she is my mother. I love this person. Then suddenly I no longer see her as a female, but I see her as a relationship. So I'm able to overcome issues from the body level when I'm identified with the emotional level. Now I take it one step further and go to the intellectual level. Intellect that is guided by Shastras. So when I see the mother or the spouse or another female, I see that divine feminine Devi form in her. She is the expression of Bhagavan in this particular form. I see Devi in her. Therefore, when we look at examples of our traditions, like marriage, he is considered as Vishnu, she is considered as Lakshmi. Mother is considered as the first guru. So like this, we see layers being added and my interaction with the same Vastu changes. So finally, when I am coming to the highest level, when I only see Paramatma in everything, is there any problems that exist in this world? Never. That individual who is causing me criticism is just another expression of Bhagavan in that particular moment, helping me overcome my karma phala. Therefore, the way I interact with the world will completely change. So, if there's any problems in life, go through these layers. Where is this problem existing? The body, mind, intellect, or spiritually? Usually it's never spiritual. If that's the case, find the next layer. Can I find values of, like now we're speaking of emotions, can I implement Shanti? Can I implement Prema? Can I implement Bhakti? Can I implement Ahimsa? All of these values, when they're invoking a better emotion, I can overcome any physical problems. When I'm having emotional issues, go to the intellect. What are the principles Shastras tell me that I can overcome the tsunamis of emotions that are happening? So take Krodha, right? Root cause of Krodha is Kama. What is it that I keep thinking that I want? What is this desires that keep making me angry? Okay, is it valid? Is it not valid? Where am I going to get happiness from? Is this going to give me happiness? What does Karma Yoga say? Sorry, I'm just spewing out all of these possibilities. But the point is, whenever there's a problem from a lower level, identify with the higher one, try to act from that standpoint. Then the more and closer I get to the spiritual level, my relationship with the world outside will completely change. So in this way, the Guru who shows me this, shows me the possibilities of improvement and growth when just my vision changes, he is worthy of respect. He is worthy of worship. No one else can do this except for Guru that can show me this way. So one of the most important thing is, Guru doesn't do things for us. All he does is shows us what we can do ourselves. And that vision change is why he's appreciated so much. So in this way, when we look at verse number 2, Ajnana timirandhasya jnananjana shalakaya chakshurun militam yena tasmai shri gurave namaha. The one who resolves the issues of ignorance with the light of knowledge helps me have the right vision to seeing Bhagwan in everything. To be able to see that akhanda mandalakaram vyaptam yena chara acharam tadpadam darshitam yena tasmai shri gurave namaha. So in this way, now we're starting to see the style of Guru Stotram. It is not just a stuti of how great a guru is as an individual. It is not just a stuti of Guru in the form of Bhagwan, but it is the stuti of Guru who is verily that pada, that highest state. So we see the Advaita principles as written by the Shastras there as well. So Guru Stotram can be taken as a very serious Advaitic Shastras to study as we keep going. So with that again, thank you so much for your patience, and we shall continue. Next week, we have Frisco graduation, so there'll be another break, but we will be back, and we'll go through as many concepts as we can through Guru Stotram, and we'll round out the year for that. Okay, so again, thank you so much. ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्छते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते ॐ शान्तिः 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 हरिः ॐ श्रीगुरुभ्यो